Sajo is a creepy rizless loser who is constantly rejected by his crush for looking like a dumpster fire. This all changes when he decides to become a Giga Chad and make her chase after him instead. One day at school, he keeps chasing after Natsukawa like a creep, but she tells him he is annoying and tries to get away from him. As he simps after her, a soccer ball almost hits him square in the face but just misses him. Natsukawa tells him that this happened because he won't stop stalking her. She then warns him to never come near her again. From then on, he decides to start acting differently. Sajo enters the classroom and barely acknowledges Natsukawa or anyone else. Ashita, Natsukawa's best friend, is surprised and wonders if he is sick or something. After class, he heads out and Natsukawa thinks that he is stalking her again, but he just calmly tells her that he is heading to the restroom, surprising everyone. Later, after the next class, he just stands up from beside her without pestering her like he usually does, surprising her. She asks where he is headed, and he replies that he is going to the cafeteria concession stand, surprising everyone else in class. One of his uglier classmates is shocked by his calm response and tells him he would normally act stupid around Natsukawa by calling her to accompany him for lunch. Sajo isn't fazed and just quietly exits the class, leaving his classmates worried as they think he has finally gone crazy because he has been rejected so many times that he should hold a Guinness World Record. Sajo sits alone in a gazebo and he's preparing to eat his snack when a really short girl named Aizawa interrupts his moment of solitude. He commends her for finding him and introduces himself as the most miserable idiot in the school. She also introduces herself but then leaves right after that. While he talks with Yamasaki the next day, Aizawa appears again, surprising him. He tells her he didn't expect a cute girl to come talk to a disgusting guy like himself. Hearing this, Yamazaki clutches his collar, telling him he shouldn't be calling any other lady cute besides Natsukawa. Yamazaki goes harder on him, and just then, Natsukawa enters the class and becomes jealous upon seeing them, but doesn't say anything. Following this, the class engages in sports. Sajo looks at Natsukawa from a distance, lost in thought as a classmate blows past him, scoring a point. Sajo is shouted out for being distracted. Later, he is at the tap, toweling off when Ashita pops up from nowhere and accuses him of being a womanizer. He wonders what the hell she's babbling about now. She says that it seems he has been doing quite a bit of looking elsewhere by giving attention to Aizawa. She then reveals Aizawa has been all lovey-dovey with a guy in the second year and that they have been a thing for many years already. On his way back to class, Sajo sneaks up to the second-year classroom to see what this guy has going on and quickly realizes that his ugly ass is no match for him. So he returns to his class and begins to think about all of this. Ashita asks what he is thinking about, and as he is about to reply, Aizawa appears and tells Sajo she would like to waste some of his time. Realizing she has time to waste, Ashita asks her why she recently broke up with the ugly guy. Aizawa's shocked, wondering how she knew about that. Ashita then begins to badmouth her ex since she claims she is over him already, but it soon becomes obvious that she was just capping. She tells Ashita not to talk about her ex like that, and then takes her leave. Sajo immediately follows her, but as he runs after her, he collides with an incoming girl, scaring her off before he can apologize to her. Later, he is talking with Aizawa again, and she notes that he has never once brought up Natsukawa, and he says he is at least smart enough to know not to talk with a girl about another girl. Aizawa asks if he likes Natsukawa, and the idiot wonders how she might have noticed, as if his creepy stalking moves weren't known throughout the whole school. He tells her it is about time for him to just move on, as a part of him has cooled off after being rejected so many times, surprising her. He then asks about the situation with her ex, and she explains that she broke up with him because he was talking about another girl in a certain way that made her jealous, even though she knew he didn't really mean what he was saying. She adds that she is trying to make him suffer through the same experience. Sajo then starts to talk about another instance of rejection he had in his past before he met Natsukawa. He was a silly stalker as usual, and the girl he was stalking slandered him one day and her boyfriend started pummeling him, but Natsukawa came and supported him. Since then, he transferred all of his attention to her and started stalking her instead. Aizawa then stands up, telling him she is now cheered up. Sajo says he will make a complaint to Ashita for her, but she tells him not to worry, saying she was only doing it to protect Natsukawa, which he didn't really understand. The next day, Ashita points out to Natsukawa that Aizawa was back on the arm of her boyfriend. Ashita then says that rejection must be Sajo's real last name to have been rejected by Aizawa. They find Sajo back at his desk and ask him about it, but he acts like a Riz King, even though no girl wants his ugly ass. They are surprised and they ask what's wrong with him, as he now seems even more off than usual. But he replies that what was off about him was the way he was before. However, Natsuko is not having it. In fact, later that afternoon, Natsuko goes to his house for some real talk. She asks if something happened to him, leaving him wondering if there was indeed something weird about him. She says being weird was his default state, and him trying not to be weird is weirder. Just then, Sajo's sister Kade barges in and starts butting into their conversation. Sajo immediately stands up and offers to walk Natsuko home. While walking her home, Sajo tells her that he will not follow her around anymore, and from now on, they will just be classmates. He then asks her if any of her friends might be a good match for him. This makes her mad and she just leaves. Again, this idiot doesn't get it. The next day, Natsuko sits alone in class. Observing her, Ashita tells Sajo he is the reason she has no other friends except herself and him, as his creepy stalking has chased the other classmates away from her. Realizing this, he reasons that this means that those around her won't hold back as long as he stops getting close to her. So he decides to support her on this. He leaves his seat and heads out thinking aloud about the situation. As he ponders on it, he meets Shinomiya, the chair of the school committee for morals and discipline. She asks him if he is the one who scared her junior off the previous day. He immediately apologizes, surprising her and prompting her to ask why he is apologizing. He tells her that he knows he is ugly and his face must have scared the shit out of her. He immediately tries to excuse himself, but she stops him and tells him that his self-esteem must be very low. She reveals that the reason the girl from the other day had that kind of attitude is that she thinks all men are scum. However, this idiot who doesn't believe in himself tells her that the reaction he received would have been the same even if it had been from someone else. He again attempts to leave, but again she stops him and tells him she wants to talk to him. Shinomiya starts telling him bedtime stories about her committee members' problems, asking him for advice on what she could do. He gives her some reasonably good solutions, and as they are about to part ways, she asks for his name, but he lies and says that it is Yamazaki. The next day, while he steps out for school with his sister, she asks him if he has spoken with Natsuko since the day she came over, and he replies that they have been talking casually. She tells him that he will continue to be a risless loser if he acts like that. As they walk on, she sees Natsuko and instantly stops. She takes her load from Sajo and tells him to go riz her up. But he is still an idiot and he just keeps walking a little ahead of her like they are in some speed walking competition. Upon getting to school, Ashita informs him that he is in trouble with the Morals and Discipline Committee chair. He meets Shinomiya again and she tells him she wants to see him during the lunch break, causing Natsuko to wonder what he did. Later, during the break, he heads over to meet her and she asks why he lied about his name. He tells her that her knowing his name as the Morals and Discipline Committee chair would only ever cause him trouble, and so he reflexively answered with his classmate's name. She says what he did was not good, and warns him to be more careful next time. So he stands up to leave, but Shinomiya prevents him, telling him that that was not the main reason why she called him there, surprising him. She then tells him that her junior, Yuyu, wants to apologize for running off in fear the previous day. Yuyu apologizes and tells him she hopes to fix her insecurities towards men, but he looks a bit disappointed and just wishes her good luck before excusing himself. As he returns from the student guidance room, he meets Ashita, who shows him how Natsuko is getting along with her classmates, unlike when he used to be a pain in the ass. He reasons that he really was in her way after all. Just then, he gets a text from his scary sister, and he later goes to meet her in the student council room after school, where she asks him to help with some administrative duties. Meanwhile, Shinomiya and Yuyu head out, with Yuyu still looking as gloomy as an unpopular opinion on a Twitter thread. She asks her if she is still thinking about Sajo, and Yuyu replies that she must have disappointed him more even though she had hoped to amend things. The next day, Natsuko arrives in class and some of her classmates show interest in spending some time at her house. While they discuss this, Sajo enters and the classmates inform him about the plan, but he turns down the invitation. Later, Natsuko meets him in the hallway to ask him if he is really not going to come over, but Shinomiya interrupts and takes him away. She tells him that Yuyu feels terrible that she couldn't get him to show her that he understood her. She then asks his opinion about the ugly girl, so he honestly explains that her apology was really all bullshit and full of caps, surprising her. The following week, they all appear in school in their summer uniforms, and Sajo gets a little steamy, thinking of Natsuko wearing hers. He meets Ashita, and as they are talking, he asks about the party they had over the weekend at Natsukawa's house, but she isn't spilling any tea, trying to make him more curious about it. Later, during class, she goes through the pictures they took and the party on her phone. She is surprised to discover that Natsukawa was moody throughout the party. She soon asks Sajo why he hasn't spoken to Natsukawa at all since morning, and he replies that he is doing the best thing he can for her by just staying away. Afterwards, after playing soccer, Sajo's classmate Sasaki meets Sajo by the water tap and tells him that Ari, Natsukawa's sister, is super cute and shows him the pictures they took together. Sasaki asks him why he didn't come to the party, to which Sajo replies that he wasn't invited, so there was not much he could do. As they check the pictures on his phone, Sajo receives a text from Kaede telling him that she doesn't need his help that day. Then Sajo realizes that he hasn't seen her since the weekend, and it is unusual that they haven't spoken for that long. Following this, Sajo sits in his seat as a loner trying to eat a snack when the ugly yet energetic Yamazaki bumps into him, yapping all about his experiences. He tells him that it is great getting to know Koga, a very loose-mouthed classmate, who doesn't mind sharing all about her plot development plans with her boyfriend. Sajo can't believe that his friend's spec is that low, but it's quite reasonable if you consider just how ugly they both are. Yamazaki isn't cool with Sajo eating all alone, so he calls him to come join with the other classmates. He talks with them and they ask what's going on with him and Natsukawa, as they haven't been entertained by their stupid little fights in a while. Koga then asks if he has clapped her, and Sajo gets mad, replying that he doesn't even know where her house is. Natsukawa suddenly appears, obviously pissed, and takes him away to the music room. He wonders why she is blowing up at him. He does a quick memory review and comes up with nothing. She says she didn't like them talking shit about her and is clearly frustrated and mad. But then she suddenly tells him to just forget about it and storms away. He continues to think about what just happened, and he tries to reason it out with Ashita what Natsukawa could have meant. Just then, a Giga Chad named Renji appears in their class to call him away. They both head to the student council room, and Renji tells him how Sajo's sister has been feeling depressed because she thinks she is responsible for his sudden change in attitude. Sajo is surprised to hear this, as he has always known her to be a bitch who had no interest whatsoever in him. However, Renji tells him he has prepared a place on the rooftop where they can talk things out. Sajo soon appears before his sister on the rooftop, and she is surprised to see him there. It happens that Renji fooled her into coming thinking she was meeting with Shinomiya. He asks her about what Renji told him, and she begins to give some explanations he ain't buying, so he tells her to stop the cap. He says he's always known her to be a tyrant, and she should continue being that, not this pretentious and annoying facade she is trying to put up. As he talks, Natsukawa, who had been peeping with Ashita, appears angrily and clutches his shirt for rudely talking to his sister that way. However, Sajo asks her what brought her up there in the first place, making her embarrassed as she runs off telling him it's just a coincidence. Later that night on his way back home, Sajo thinks about how weird Natsukawa has been, but refuses to believe she likes him, not an ugly, disgusting idiot like himself. Following this, Natsukawa and Ashita meet at a cafe, and Ashita asks why she rushed headlong into everything she previously did that day, and she apologizes, telling her she doesn't understand either. Natsukawa then talks about the day everyone came to her house and warmed up to her younger sister. She reveals that she somehow hoped that it was Sajo that her sister had warmed up to. Ashita tells her that Sajo has recently not been making advances to her at all as he used to, and that's what's making Natsukawa frustrated and confused. Ashita tells her that maybe she wants him to be in her life, but Natsukawa denies it, saying he is annoying with his stalking. Ashita then tells her that Sajo has been making the effort until now, and maybe it's her turn to make an effort. At Sajo's home, his sister points out that he is looking trashy because he has not been taking care of his hair like he used to. But he doesn't give a shit about his appearance anymore since he has stopped chasing after Natsukawa, who used to be the only reason he cared about his looks. The next day at school, he receives a message from his sister that she doesn't need him today too, relieving him. Natsukawa tries approaching Sajo, but he stands up and leaves, unaware that she approached him. He heads to a relaxing spot within the school as he sits to start eating his junk food. Shinomiya walks up to him and tells him he should have asked to share a table with them instead of sitting alone at an empty table. But he replies that sitting with a group of morals and discipline committee members would be nothing but terror. They persuade him to join them, but one of them, Aya, isn't cool with his presence and blurts that men are known to be a set of cultured individuals who don't know more than looking at cute girls. Yu defends Sajo, saying he's not like every other man as he is too ugly to do such a thing. A few moments later, after they finish their meal, Shinomiya tells Sajo that Yu has changed thanks to him and has become more welcoming to men. Sajo feels he didn't do anything significant. She also tells him that his advice also inspired her to become more open, surprising him. Sajo returns to class and Sasaki shares that he is having trouble with his younger sister who seems to be into him and doesn't want him to be talking to other girls. Natsukawa and her friends soon enter the class and Sasaki reveals to Sajo that he has a crush on Natsukawa and is considering making advances to her. Sajo thinks that Sasaki might really be the ideal guy for Natsukawa, unlike a pathetic, miserable loser like himself. After school, as he prepares to go home, Natsukawa suddenly appears behind him, surprising him as he thought she already left with her friends. She tells him that she forgot something, so he accompanies her to the classroom. After picking up what she left behind, she asks him where he usually goes during the lunch break. He reveals that he goes wherever he sees fit. She asks who he eats with, but he tells her he usually eats alone, except that day when he ate with Shinomiya, Yu, and Aya. Hearing this, she turns into an FBI agent, asking him what his relationship with Shinomiya is, and he reassures her that she's just a friend. She then asks him if he will start eating lunch with them. He remembers how staying away from her is the best decision he can make for her, so he immediately replies with a no. As they head out, she talks about his unkempt hair, so he immediately goes to a store on his way home to get a dye for it. The following day, all the students receive their exam results and Sajo finds out that he got the 65th place in his class, unlike the last time when he was 32nd. He realizes that he was previously motivated to study because he was seeking Natsukawa's approval, so his grade dropped this time because he was no longer motivated. On the other hand, Natsukawa was ranked 27th before, and now she ended up in 2nd place, making Sajo think that he was the one in the way of her studying. Later in class, Natsukawa's friends tell her that they would like to revisit her home for summer break. A clueless idiot among them asks Natsukawa if she would be inviting Sajo this time, even though they have not been close unlike before when he was always loitering around her like a moron. Sajo is embarrassed by this and leaves the class. As he's walking along the hallway, he notices some ugly bitches yapping about Natsukawa, so he suddenly interrupts them, scaring the ugliest among them, Marika. Marika confronts him for scaring them like that as she claims to be an aristocrat, but Sajo only mocks her, pissing her off as she marches off with her ugly friends in tow. The following day, while Sajo and Natsukawa head to school in the rain with their umbrellas, they bump into each other, and she asks him what he is doing there. He asks her if she also is feeling the cold, and she says she's not feeling it, so he concludes that it might just be his imagination. He continues walking, and Natsukawa hastens up to meet him, but she almost gets hit by Truck-kun. Sajo quickly saves her ass, getting soaked in the process. At class, he starts feeling sick and soon falls asleep. He later wakes up during class and he feels embarrassed that he had been sleeping. The ugly teacher advises him to focus, but he requests permission to go to the infirmary instead. However, as he stands up to leave, he suddenly collapses, putting the whole class into a state of panic. A bit later, the nurse assures Ashita and Natsukawa that he will be fine after he rests. They then check up on him before returning to class. However, Natsukawa is worried about him and cannot concentrate in class. Shinomiya soon appears with everyone admiring her. She asks Ashita about Sajo and she reveals that he collapsed and was taken to the infirmary. Shinomiya tells her she will inform Sajo's sister so they can visit him together. Following this, Ashita and Natsukawa head to the infirmary to check up on him, and they are surprised to see he is awake. He feels embarrassed and can't even look at them, as he apologizes for causing them trouble. He suddenly feels a headache and they try to attend to him, but he won't allow them to touch him, saying he doesn't want them to contract his cold. As the girls return from the infirmary, they meet Kaide and Shinomiya, who are headed to the infirmary. They decide to follow them to check up on Sajo one more time. The next day, Sajo misses school, which Natsukawa isn't happy about, so she and Ashita visit him at home to check up on him. Ashita tells Sajo that Natsukawa had suggested that they pay him a visit, surprising him. She defends herself because she is the reason that he got drenched. A few days later, Natsukawa sees the idiot who almost died of a fever a couple of days back talking to a girl. While she's jealous about this, Marika approaches her to ask for her support in helping her become the next student council president. Surprised, Natsukawa asks if a first year can even become the student body president. This ugly girl explains that anyone can run as a candidate regardless of the class year. However, she says first-year students are at a disadvantage because most people think that only upper-level students can become representatives of the students. Sajo tells her that her strategy to use Natsukawa as the poster girl is a wrong move because Natsukawa is way more outstanding and cuter than her ugly ass. So people would think that Natsukawa should have ran for the position instead of her. Pissed off, Marika marches off in anger with her ugly friends, but Sajo's unexpected riz is still yet to wear off Natsukawa's body. She yells at him for making such statement, but Sajo rizzes her up again by calling her cute, making her run off in embarrassment. The next day, Sajo sulks because his peanut brain can't understand anything the teacher is teaching. After class, he heads to the cafeteria immediately. As he looks for an empty table, Yu calls him from outside alongside her squad, and he goes to sit with them. He wonders why Yu called him, as he thinks they haven't gotten friendly to the point of having lunch together. Shinomiya then reveals that Yu called him over so they could ask him if he would like to join the Morals and Discipline Committee. He humbly declines, stating that he doesn't have what it takes to take up that role. Shinomiya tells him that she will soon retire from her position as the chair, but they have been unable to recruit any boys from the first or second year students. She further states that his face came to mind when she thought about it, and she wants him to support the committee just as he did when she came to him for advice. He has never been sought after like this before. While thinking, Yu grabs his hands affectionately, surprising him. He pulls away awkwardly, pissing the other two girls off. They immediately stand up to discipline him, making him think this is one of the reasons he isn't fit to join the committee. Natsukawa sees Sajo in the hallway, who barely survived the other girl's punishment. She fixes his crusty hair as others pass by them, confused. Sajo asks Natsukawa why she did that, and she immediately gets embarrassed. At a ceremony in the auditorium, Sajo looks at the only male member of the Morals and Discipline Committee in awe. He is known for being a reliable guy whom even women feel comfortable around. Back in their classroom, the teacher asks for volunteers to help out at the school during summer break. They play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to help out, and Sajo wins. However, upon learning that Natsukawa will be volunteering, Sasaki offers to take the loser's place. Sajo agrees with Ashita that the two of them look good together, disappointing Ashita, but Sajo insists that they do seem like a good pairing. Ashita teases that she's worried about Sajo having withdrawal symptoms from not seeing Natsukawa for the whole break, but Sajo remains uninterested. Near his part-time job, Sajo witnesses a child getting bullied by a group of middle schoolers. Trying to be a Giga Chad, Sajo comes to the rescue. The child's older sister then comes to pick him up. He immediately simps for her and thinks she's very pretty for a college student. Back at home, he still fantasizes about her. His older sister catches wind of Sajo getting invited to join the Morals and Discipline Committee. She says that if he doesn't want to, he can just join the student council because she's hesitant to give her position to others. Sajo recalls the ugly dumb girl wanting to get into the student council. In the end, Kaide insists that he should think seriously about her offer. Back at his part-time job, the pretty woman comes to visit him, who says they live nearby. This simp then continues to compliment her for having a mature vibe. They have a little chat where Sajo keeps throwing her compliments, which makes her blush. She admits that she doesn't really talk to men that much, having come from an overprotective family. She then hands over a gift for Sajo. After she leaves, Sajo opens the gift, revealing a handkerchief with animal prints, which makes him wonder if he comes off as a childish loser. Some days later, she comes back to the bookstore for a quick chat. He compliments her bracelet, and she tells him the name of the shop where she bought it. The idiot blushes over the slightest physical contact. He thinks about going there to make a bracelet for Natsukawa, whose birthday is coming soon. Meanwhile, Ashita, Natsukawa, and Eri are planning to go swimming. They stop by Sajo's house to make him carry their bags, but he's not there. So Ashita assumes he's at his part-time job. Back at the beach, Sajo admires Fuka's body. Fuka teases him, suggesting that maybe he's looking for pretty girls in swimsuits, but Sajo denies it. As they walk back, she grabs Sajo's arm, brushing her melons against him, making him flustered. They go inside the bracelet store, where the shopkeeper recognizes Fuka and mistakes Sajo for being her ugly boyfriend. As they browse the shop, Sajo gets overwhelmed, worrying about what Natsukawa would appreciate. The shopkeeper and Fuka ask if it's for a girl, and when Sajo answers, they tease him for being a good man. Catching him thinking intently, Fuka asks if it's for his girlfriend, but Sajo denies it and insists that it's an unrequited love. Sajo then reflects on his relationship with Natsukawa, believing that, despite being rejected, it still made him a better person. In the end, he makes up his mind to gift her something that he thinks would suit her, even if she doesn't like it. Meanwhile, at the same beach, the girls are relaxing. They spot the craft store from afar and decide to go there to get some souvenirs. At the store, Seijo sees a picture of Fuka and her dad on the wall from their last visit. He's confused as to why she's wearing a middle school uniform in the photo, but she tells him that she's actually a third year in middle school.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
He tries to clear his mind by distracting himself, sawing a hard shell. Fuka encourages him as he's still in disbelief that she's younger than him. After everything, Fuka asks him if he's truly given up on his love and why he's still trying his best. Seijo answers that his love for Natsukawa still changed him as a person. The girls then arrive at the craft store, which is now closed for craft work. Only Ayuri notices the picture of Fuka and Seijo on the wall. Instead, they go for desserts, where Natsukawa sees what looks like Seijo from afar but thinks she's mistaken. Ashita comments on how it sucks that Seijo isn't there with them and feeds more doubts to Natsukawa, suggesting that maybe he's on a date. Seijo and Fuka are now heading back, as Fuka has a curfew. On the bus, Fuka asks Saho if she can also fall in love when she becomes a high schooler, and Saho only laughs at her innocence. He advises her that love isn't something you can really prepare for. She then falls asleep on his shoulder. Seijo sees a notification on his phone and simps when he sees a picture of Natsukawa in a swimsuit sent by Ashita, recognizing the same place they were at earlier. Some days later, Seijo asks his boss what he's going to do after he quits his job following the summer break, and the man replies that he has already put up a hiring poster. Seijo then proceeds with his work when a girl interrupts him. Turns out it's his boring classmate, Mina, and she's interested in the position. Seijo talks to the old man about it and learns that she's actually a regular at their store, so she's hired immediately. She's then taken to the boss's wife, who comments that her bangs are in the way and says she'll cut them off. Eavesdropping, Seijo panics and distracts her from cutting them. He saves the day by having Mina explain that she uses hair clips to keep her hair out of the way. The next day, he's supposed to train her for the job, and he's worried because she's quiet and boring as hell. He assigns her tasks around the store, but she's useless. A customer comes in and he leaves her alone, assuming the customer is just browsing. But the nerd makes a scene by yapping that the store doesn't have the book he wants. Seijo intervenes, hoping to shut his nerdy ass up. The useless girl ends up crying either way. Seijo talks to the boss about how useless she is and reprimands him for being too lenient with her. But the boss explains that Mina is their loyal customer. Seijo retorts that his wife will be mad because Mina isn't doing the job they hired her for. Later, Seijo talks to Mina in the staff room about dealing with customers and basically tells her to just quit if she's not capable of doing it. But the girl begs him to spare her, stating that she'll do anything. The boss barges in, and Seijo explains that she wants to stay, which makes the boss happy. After work, Seijo finds Ashita and Natsukawa ranting about how he's too busy with his part-time job. Natsukawa gets anxious when he joins the video call, and as soon as he does, she turns off her camera. Seijo asks for advice, explaining that he made a girl bow to him at work, but the girls blame him for it. Ashita jokes about him being a jerk, while Natsukawa reassures him that he's not the only one at fault and that he tried his best to teach her. Ashita then makes an excuse to leave the two alone, and they awkwardly chat with each other. Natsukawa encourages him once more, but she gets mad when he ends the call first. The following day, the girl still comes to work, and Seijo apologizes. He's surprised that she has improved a lot by taking initiative. She admits that she watched YouTube tutorials on how to deal with customers, but he begins to wonder why she's so determined to stick with this job. During their break, Seijo asks her about it, and she reveals that she wants to be independent from her older brother, who is the male member of the Morals and Discipline Committee. She says that she loves her brother, but their relationship has gone bad ever since she discovered him kissing a girl in his room. Seijo is deeply engrossed in her story, completely touched by her effort to become independent, and because his ugly brother gets more action than he does. Fuka then enters the store, and Seijo introduces her to Mina. He puts them together because he thinks they'd be good friends as book lovers, and also so that Mina can practice her social skills. Seijo then explains that he'll quit the job soon, making Mina upset, but of course the oblivious idiot doesn't know why. At home, he figures out that it's because he's the only one she really talks to. The next day at work, Seijo spends time helping her. She sees a book about cooking eggs and remembers how Yuri, her brother's girlfriend, kept stealing his attention. When their shift is over, they are approached by Mina's brother, who asks her out for lunch. He asks Sajo to leave them alone, but out of concern for Mina, Sajo decides to tag along. Somewhere else, they all sit down and have a talk, where the brother apologizes to Mina for neglecting her. But then, his girlfriend enters and butts into their conversation. She also apologizes to Mina and tells her that it's too soon for her to get a job because she's useless. They both pressure her to come back. Sajo interrupts and tells them all about her character development arc and how much of an ass they both are for still treating her like a child. After they leave, Sajo reassures Mina that she's truly improving and doing her best. He admits that he didn't want them to take her away after all she had been through. Moved by his words, Mina starts to cry. Back at school, preparations for the school visit tour finally begin. As expected, Sasaki follows Natsukawa around like a loyal dog. Meanwhile, Fuka visits the bookstore again and chats with Mina about books. To Sajo's surprise, Mina has become much more expressive in their conversation. Later at home, Sajo's sister corners him and demands that he help out with the student council for the school visit tour. She reminds him that he hurt Shinomiya's feelings last time by declining their invitation. Reluctantly, Sajo agrees and calls Shinomiya to schedule a meetup. The next day at school, they meet up awkwardly, still affected by the incident with Yuyu. Shinomiya explains that they need extra hands for manual labor since their committee is mostly made up of girls. Peeking into a nearby classroom, she adds that the more good-looking and sociable students will act as school representatives for the tour, hoping to attract new students. Sajo is disturbed because he's ugly as hell. Inside, Sajo spots Natsukawa and Sasaki. As soon as Sasaki noticed him, he quickly walks away to avoid interaction. When they finally arrive at the student council room, Mina's brother greets Sajo with a flood of compliments, praising him for changing Mina. Back in the room, Sasaki invites Natsukawa to watch their practice match, but she turns him down because she needs to take care of her sister. This reminds her of middle school, when she often felt left out due to her responsibilities. Back then, when she helped Sajo, it was because she saw herself in him. The following day, Sajo asked her to be his girlfriend, but she turned him down. However, after his persistent stalking tendencies, people approached her more to talk about his disgusting behavior. As the entrance exams approached, they saw less of each other because Sajo studied hard, hoping to attend the same school as her. In high school, she gained friends like Ashita thanks to him too, but she's confused as to why his behavior changed so suddenly. In the present, Natsukawa hears Seijo's voice, but to her surprise, it's only Sasaki. He gives up on pursuing her, realizing that she only has eyes for Sajo. She then searches for Sajo everywhere, and she realizes that she misses him after all this time. When she spots him, she follows him relentlessly until they finally bump into each other. Sajo then explains that he's been doing manual labor for the council. He's surprised when Natsukawa admits that she saw him earlier. Panicking, he wonders why she was the one to approach him this time, and gets even more startled when she smells him. She asks if something good happened to make him act so familiar, but Natsukawa simply replies that it's because she missed him. He brings up the photo of her in a swimsuit that Ashita sent, causing her to blush and attempt to steal his phone, but she falls on top of him. Just then, Ashita arrives and interrupts their moment. The three of them chat, and Sajo ends up snitching on Shinomiya, revealing that only good-looking students were chosen for the school tour. Ashita teases him, suggesting that Sajo must have secretly wanted to be Natsukawa's partner instead of Sasaki. Sajo quickly denies it. Natsukawa then proposes that the three of them should have a get-together at her house after the tour, and everyone agrees. The day of the school visit tour finally came. The middle schoolers are smitten by the president's riz that Sajo could only dream of having. Fuka ends up being toured by Sasaki and Natsukawa. A girl asks them about their relationship, but Natsukawa insists that they're just classmates. During a short break, they find Yuyu being harassed by a bunch of ugly middle schoolers. Natsukawa stepped in and roasted the ugly bastards by telling them that the school doesn't need a bunch of betas like them. After the tour, the ugly bastards apologize for their actions. The group stumbles upon Sajo, and Fuka immediately rushes to him, causing a shock to both Sasaki and Natsukawa. Fuka's hype girls exaggerate their apparent deep relationship, making Natsukawa misunderstand their relationship even more. Fuka quickly pushes them away and leaves, while Sasaki also hurries off, seemingly scared for Sajo. Once everyone leaves, Sajo nervously tries to speak with Natsukawa, but she drags him away. Soon after, Sajo is grilled by Ashita, and Natsukawa threatens to take back the swimsuit photo. But she gives up and instead makes Sajo promise to hang out with them more. leaving him flustered. Days later, Natsukawa visits Sajo during his shift despite the heavy rain. Inside, Mina offers her a towel. Natsukawa asks if he plans to continue working, and Sajo replies that it's only until the end of summer break, though Natsukawa still feels uneasy for some reason. Fuka then enters the store, greeting everyone. Natsukawa, noticing how close Sajo is with the girls, feels jealous. However, Sajo reassures her that he'll stay by her side so that she's not left alone, and this makes Natsukawa blush. Embarrassed, she stumbles into a pile of books and ends up in Sajo's arms. The girls, sensing the tension, quickly close the door, feeling like they're interrupting. Natsukawa awkwardly brings up her invitation for Sajo to come over to her house, stammering as she tries to explain. She claims it's so he can become Airi's older brother, leaving both of them even more flustered. At Natsukawa's house, Sajo and Ashita finally arrive. Sajo meets her little sister Airi, who immediately enslaves him to be her playmate, draining his energy. Ashita teases them, joking that Sajo can be Airi's big brother, which makes Natsukawa blush with irritation. After an exhausting time playing with Airi, their mother arrives, and Sajo introduces himself. To his surprise, she says she already knows about him because Natsukawa often talks about him. However, she pushes them to leave, suggesting that they can chat another time. On their way home, Sajo continues probing about what Natsukawa might have told her mother, but she brushes it off, refusing to elaborate. Ashita bids them goodbye, and Natsukawa insists on walking further with Sajo. As they stroll through the park, Natsukawa mentions that school has been a lot more fun for her, thanks to Sajo's stalking tendencies. Sajo apologizes, offering to step away from her life, but she retorts that she belongs to him. Just then, fireworks explode in the sky, and they share an awkward hug. Natsukawa shyly asks him to stop calling her by her last name and requests that he stay by her side from now on. After the fireworks, Sajo hesitantly reaches out his hand. Natsukawa notices and, without hesitation, reaches her hand toward his. Their fingers finally intertwine and they hold hands. As they part ways, they both call each other by their first names for the first time. The next day at school, Sajo finds Natsukawa waiting for him. They greet each other and she fixes his tie. Both of them blush as they walk side by side as they enter the school. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Check out this next video and thanks for watching.